Hey, what is up, everybody? Platform Disciple here, and today we're looking at some more Revelation spoilers. For those of you who were not aware, the Kickstarter has officially launched, so I will put a link to that in the description. And because the Kickstarter launched, we got to see a bunch of new cards that I'm going to go over, in addition to some cards that had already been revealed, but I just hadn't gotten a chance to talk about them yet. So there's quite a bit to say here today. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to kind of cover the Kickstarter really quick, because I think that if you don't look at it, you might not be really aware of the kind of value that you're being offered here. That obviously there's different tiers you can pledge at. So if you're somebody who's a bit more of a whale, you can go all in and get some really cool stuff. But if you're not somebody who's a bit of a whale and you're really interested in maybe supporting the game but being financially responsible, there is a early bird night tier, which is $40 US, which comes out to a little over $27 for those of you who are living in the United States or more familiar with that currency. And that will get you a platinum version of every card, or I should say a platinum playset of every card. Compared to literally any other trading card game on the market, you will not find a better deal than that. It is so unbelievably generous at that price point. Because there's I think it's 100 cards in this new set. It's not like you're getting 300 cards is what I'm getting at. You get the full play set and you get every card. And you're getting it in premium border. And then on top of that, you get some extra booster packs and stuff. So it's a crazy good deal. But I do want to caveat this and say, if you're not a whale and you still don't want to put in even the 40 Australian or 27 US dollars because you're on a budget, this game has a small enough community that you playing games offers a lot of value to this community, even if you are not spending money. That if you're somebody who puts in 3 hours a week in this game but has never spent a cent, still, thank you so much for playing this game, because you're making the game function. You need multiple players online for queues to fire. So regardless of whether you want to get involved in the Kickstarter or not, you guys are really supporting the game either way. Anyways, enough with that. Let's jump into what we're really here for, which is the cards. And we're going to go through here in really no particular order. Or, well, I should say it's the order that Jason from Lightmare has put them in the Discord, because that's just what's most convenient for me. We're going to start with a Pristine World. It is an ability card. It's an epic. It's for Warpath plus Overseers. Little bit of an unusual combo there, and it removes all artifacts, all enemy artifacts, enemy locations, and cards in their graveyard. So wipes that clean. Not really an exciting card to start off with, if I'm being honest with you. I think 9 is kind of egregiously overcosted for this. I mean, you will absolutely hose certain decks that are very reliant on their graveyards or artifacts. But I would rather play a card like Consecration really in most scenarios. But not every card can be a winner. Next, we have another Warpath plus Overseers card. This is a rare, Angel of the Garden, 7 costs, 8/12. It has flying and lifelink, and lifelink has a number next to it, 6. So when this character is dealing damage, your fortress gains 6 health. Lifelink's still a relatively new ability to Infinity Wars, so we haven't seen that many cards with it, so it's cool to see a card that has this effect and might be a little more potent than some of the existing cards we've had with Lifelink. But the real kicker on this card is that it has pay 4 Enrage 6, so you could pay 4 resources, and it gets +6/+6, and you can do this only once. The activation is preemptive, which means it happens before all other abilities, this is the first time we've seen a preemptive ability on a character card. And when you enrage the Angel of the Garden, the next ability card your opponent plays this turn has no effect. So it's a counter spell on a character. And this card, I think, is probably pretty good. It's hard to say. The thing that really comes to mind for me is that you can put this in the command zone and you can enrage this card from the command zone. And being able to counter a spell is good, but I think more significantly is the ability to threaten to counter a spell, that your opponent, anytime you have this in your command zone, up until the point where you actually pull the trigger and activate the card, this card threatens every ability card they play, and they have to think twice about whether they're going to commit to playing something like Mass Death or not, because they don't know when you're going to fire off the actual counter effect. So I think this is a cool card. I think it promotes some very interesting gameplay in terms of, like, you can kind of play chicken with, are you going to activate it? Are you going to try to cast a spell? Is your opponent going to try to cast an ability even though you still have it available? Yeah, so cool card. Next up, Overseers plus Veror. Not a combination that we have gotten to see on many cards, but this one I think has some potential here. So it is a 3-cost 6/4 flyer, and when you deploy Ascended Sorceress, target character or artifact can't use abilities this turn. If it attempts to, kill it. I think this is good. I think this is quite good. There's a lot of characters in the game that have really, really potent activated abilities. And there aren't that many good options to deal with those cards if they are in the command zone. So a great example would be Rita, or any of the Alitas, or Kali. Kali's a kind of a notorious one at this point because it supports a very aggressive deck. And being able to put a body on the board that can attack or defend, but also has the potential to wipe out one of your opponent's core pieces in their command zone, has a lot going for it. So I think this card's really good. It's also common, which is nice. Okay, next one. And this one is one that I think got revealed quite early on, but I just didn't get around to talking about it. Avarrach Mastermind. And it's a rare, and it is a 4-cost 10/12. So its stat line is quite, like, this is a good stat line for a 4-cost card. And then it has an interesting ability. When you deploy Avarrach Mastermind, choose target card in your graveyard. You can pick any card. It doesn't have to be a character. It can be an ability. When Avarrach Mastermind attacks, create a copy of the chosen card in your graveyard. If you have 20 more cards in your graveyard, create 2 copies instead. So I think the kind of obvious route to take with this card is to look at something like Infested Abomination, where the more of them that you have in your graveyard, the more damage that you're cranking out into your opponent. There's some other interesting characters that you can use in combination with this, but another kind of thing to think about is that we have this new recall keyword, which lets you cast cards from your graveyard, and this Avarrach Mastermind gives you the potential to keep additional copies of a card in your graveyard, so that you can cast, which basically makes this able to, whenever it attacks, sort of draw you a card, because it's creating an extra card that you could potentially play. So I think this is pretty good. It's just a question of how you want to take advantage of it, and there's a lot of different ways to take advantage of it. So I think up until the set goes live, it's unclear just how powerful the card is, because it has so many different routes you could go down with it. Okay. All right, next. Crystalline Replication. This is a Exiles plus Genesis card. It's an ability. It's a rare. It's 3 cost. Target character you control gains +5/+5, which compared to the card Upgrade, this costs 1 extra. which is a small additional cost to pay for the next effect, which is you create an exact copy of that character on top of your deck. And again, kind of like Avarrach Mastermind, the question is, what kind of card are you trying to copy here? It could be Infested Abomination again. Some other things that come to mind are you could potentially copy like Corrupted Celestial Dragon if you want to get that far into the game and really lock your opponent out of playing the game. I think this has a lot of potential. I'm just not totally sure on what character it is you're trying to make more of. There's definitely a lot of characters that if you have more of them, it's even better. So we'll see. I mean, it seems like a good card. I just don't really know what deck you put it in, because right now I don't think I've really seen Exiles plus Genesis very often at all. So we'll see how it plays out. Next, Cultural Exchange, and it's Warpath plus Descendants of the Dragons. It's 2 cost. It's an ability. It's a rare. At the start of your next turn, you may play an additional location. You may have an additional location in play this game. So this card lets you have 2 locations out. This is a really cool effect. Locations have been a type of card where you have to pick and choose which one you really want to have your deck focus around, and this lets you break those rules, and you can have 2 locations out. You might even be able to have 2 of the same location, which is interesting. The faction combination does limit which locations you can do, because you do have to be in Warpath plus Descendants of the Dragons. But I think this card has a significant amount of potential to open up some weird new decks. I just don't know what they are. And it's yeah, I'm not really sure what you do with this, but you won't be able to do anything like this with any other card. It's just which 2 locations are you really trying to have in play? For anyone watching, maybe you could let me know in the comments which 2 locations are really the ones that you're trying to have out at the same time for the biggest payoff. Okay. All right, next we have an epic. It is 8 cost, an ability. It's Overseers and Sleepers, which I'm trying to think if we've had Overseers plus Sleepers before. Nothing is coming to mind, but it could just be that I'm forgetting. But either way, it's not a combination we've seen on cards very frequently, if at all. Card's called Death in Heaven, and it lets you choose one. Kill all deployed token characters, or kill all deployed non-token characters. And the mode that you probably really want to focus on when you're looking at this card is kill all deployed non-token characters, because that's the easiest version of this effect to abuse. Because really the goal with this card is, can I wipe out a lot of my opponent's stuff without wiping out my own stuff? If you have all token characters and you play this, you can potentially kill everything your opponent has and you still have your stuff. That being said, I think even if you're not running a strictly token strategy, this still is 8 cost, kill all your opponent's stuff and your stuff too, which if we're going to like compare it to something like the Calamity, this is 8 cost. It's not as potent as the Calamity, but it does a pretty good imitation of the Calamity effect at a discount of 3, which in itself is a big deal. So I think this card's quite good. Okay. All right, now we're going to look at an uncommon for Genesis. It's Drason's Revolutionaries. It's 6 costs. It's a 15/5, which I do not like having 5 health on a 6 cost card, but let's take a look at the ability. When you deploy Drason's Revolutionaries, it deals damage to target enemy character on the battlefield equal to twice the number of cards you have removed and discarded from your hand this game. So this is a character that is also a removal piece. But my thoughts on the card are as follows. One is, I think this is a really large version of Flame Dawn Commando, and Flame Dawn Commando costs 5 less. I know this can do way more damage than Flame Dawn Commando, but this requires quite a bit of setup. You have to have some way of discarding and removing cards from your hand. Could be overcharge effects. It could be Logarithmatron comes to mind as a card that's in Genesis. And for the Logarithmatron deck, I suppose that this card, when you don't need it, Logarithmatron can just eat it. So the cost of including it in your deck is relatively low. But my experience playing Logarithmatron, I feel like I've already got a lot of the cards that I want in the deck kind of filled out, and it's difficult to swap things in and out because I really want to have the cards that are already in there, and I want to keep the deck as lean as possible. So I'm not really sure how much I like this card. This is definitely not one of my favorites among the ones that we've seen. Okay, but speaking of favorites,